Welcome to the Painted Toad. Today we're going to learn to draw and paint a quaint little downtown. For the downtown shops and street cafe, we're going to start with a quick sketch. And for the building shapes, you can modify these any way that you want. I'm just drawing in some rectangular shapes. You can see I did a horizon line, a little bit under the center, and then I'm just creating different height rectangles. You could make them all the same height, but I like to do a variety. So step one is just sketching in some rectangles. Next, I'm going to add in some roofs and other details like windows. You can have fun with the shapes of the roofs. Um, just use your imagination or maybe look at some pictures to see how different buildings might look. This is supposed to have kind of a small town look. If you're thinking yours is going to be a big city, your buildings might look a little bit different. But I'm just doing these small little downtown buildings. It kind of looks like buildings that were in the small town where I grew up. So sketching in doors, windows, roofs, giving yourself some different things, features that you'll be able to paint later. I'm going to add an awning over this door. Maybe this is a little boutique. If you think about each little building and kind of think about what is it for and give it a personality, that will help you with your drawing. So I'm doing like a awning midway on this building here. It's also fun to change up the shapes. So for this, I'm going to do an arched doorway. I think this is going to be my little bakery. So I'm going to give it kind of an Italian look. They have a lot of arches in Italian architecture. Little big, it kind of looks like little bakery in the town where we used to get donuts every Sunday. They had little rounded windows like that at the top. They had arches. Over here, I'm going to have this building on the far side. That's going to be my cafe. So I'm going to create like a two-story cafe, I think, and it will have it will have like a seating area up towards the top, and then the rest of the tables and chairs with umbrellas are going to come out here onto the street. So this is like a street where you really wouldn't have cars. It would be for walking traffic only. And I'm going to have some more fun with the arched doorways and things. So use your imagination. In fact, when I'm done painting this, I actually looked at it. It kind of looked like an old firehouse that had been converted into a cafe. So you can come up with little stories like that for the buildings in your little town. Now I'm just drawing some little tables. So I did like a round oval table and umbrellas. So this is the little street cafe area where all the little tables kind of come out. You can do little chairs. Any of the umbrellas and tables that are farther away would be a bit smaller. The ones that are closer will be a bit larger. So the ones closest to the bottom would be larger. I feel like I need some other thing down in the left-hand side because it's kind of empty over there. So I'm going to make just a small push cart here. It's going to be, maybe I'll have a little seller that sells flowers every day, like fresh flowers. So I'm just going to put a little push cart out here in the street, the little flower vendor. So when you're doing yours, use your imagination and add any kind of little details, things that you want to add to your town to make it interesting. And my sketch is all done. And so now it's ready to paint. So just a note, at the end of this painting, I actually changed this background. So I'm starting with blue here, but I did decide to make it kind of a sunrise, early morning. So if you want to do that for your background instead of just blue, I do this at the end. So if you want to skip ahead to the end and take a look at that, you're going to do light yellow with a little bit of like a peachy orange and then mix it in with the blue. Or you can just follow along, do it exactly how I did it. Both ways are fine. But sometimes as I'm painting, I realize I want to do a different plan. So just a heads up, if you'd like to look ahead and see how that looks, you'll notice you notice in the picture at the beginning, it did look a little bit different. So that's why this blue here, um, even though I'm starting with blue, I end up with something different at the end. And I'm going to just take a little bit of white aside here and mix some of this brown into it. Let's see, like that. It's kind of a light, almost looks a little grayish. I'm just going to come in here and do the street area. I have this little flower cart here, so I'm going to do my best to paint around these things, just because I want to keep my design. You know, if you cover up a couple little spots, that's fine. I'm using the flat edge of my brush to get kind of a nice even line here. This went up a bit higher than what I wanted, but I'm just going to go with it. Sometimes that happens. I'm kind of painting this rather quickly. And I'm just going to work around these little cafe tables. You can always paint the legs on later. Just going to kind of get up and around and under these. And then all of the little umbrellas and things, I can fix that later. I can paint the table legs. I can put little chairs in there. You know, all of those details you can get to later. I don't know why that line is there. I don't remember why I drew it there. So this is all just base coat. The bottom coat kind of filling in the canvas. We're going to paint details over this. I'm thinking of going with a cobblestone look, so we'll have some fun with that in a little bit. But for right now, I just want to get some color down. My goodness, clear my throat. Getting some color down on the canvas, that's what I'm trying to say. If you have a thicker canvas with edges, you can always paint the edges of your canvas. This one I have is pretty thin, so I'm not going to take too much time doing that. And now for some fun stuff. So now I can go in and start to maybe add a little color to my buildings. So it kind of depends on how you want to do your little shops here. You know, what kind of a vibe you're going for. I would recommend maybe looking up some different pictures of downtowns and things like that. So you can get some ideas, you know. For example, I think I would like to do, I'm going to take some white here, pull it aside, and I'm going to do a real light, sunny, lemony yellow for the, I'm feeling like this is like a little bakery, so maybe like a sunny little bakery. So I'm getting a little bit of yellow. And where is my stir stick? Here we go. Since I'm not doing very much, I don't want to get a ton on my brush. So I'm going to stir it up first. So that was just the white. I get kind of that light lemon yellow. That's what I'm going for. And I'm just going to come in and paint this, each little building. You can really have fun with this, do some different fun colors. Yeah, you don't have to really have to conform to anything. You can make it your own little world, your own little town. You don't have to conform to, you know, something from real life. Sometimes I think when we try to paint something from real life, it actually frustrates us more. At least it does for me, because then it's like, oh, that's not quite right, or I keep trying to rework it to get it to look exactly like something. And these free little paintings where you're just painting for the fun of painting, it makes it so much less stressful. To me, it's more enjoyable. Let me just try that. And what other fun shades and colors could we do for the buildings? I'm thinking maybe just like a classic beige for this one. I do have, where is my beige? I have like this, kind of this creamy color, buttermilk, or so like a buttermilk, or this one from Craft Smart, it's like a khaki. I think khaki might look cute. And I'm using a very small brush here because I'm working on a little 5x7 canvas. So if you have a larger canvas you're doing this on, you could totally do it on a larger canvas and just use larger brushes for all this stuff. But because I'm working on a smaller canvas, I'm using little brushes. Kind of flip it to the edge if you got a skinny spot you got to get in there. Or you can even switch to a smaller brush, but I just flip it to the edge. If some of it goes over on the roof, like you could just go like this. If some of that crosses over on the roof, that's fine. We'll paint that. We'll fix it and tidy it up later. Like I said, we're just getting base coats down. So get all of those bottom coats of paint. I feel like we're going to have like some little window boxes on those windows. Maybe it's an apartment building with a little shop underneath. And I'm going to take a little bit, I've got some of this raw umber brown left. So I'm going to mix that with this beige khaki. Just get a deeper brown here. This time I used my brush. I should have used my stir stick, but that's all right. So I'm going with the neutral colors on these buildings, but we're going to have a lot of fun with the little awnings and stuff, so that's where we'll get a pop of color. But you could totally do multiple colors on each building. You know, like if you're in Latin America or something where they go real colorful on all their buildings. That would be a super fun painting to do. So, as always, with any one of these paintings, you can really make it your own. Really add your own style. Use your imagination. Now, if working around all these little windows and doors is tedious for you, then just paint over them. Just paint right over them, and then you can always paint back on top where you want things. So it does not have to be like uber stressful. I feel like we need another color on this building over here. And I'm thinking this is like my little restaurant cafe. So we've got like, there's some umbrellas up there. So let me see here. What would be a sweet color for this? Maybe like a burgundy might be a fun color. So to make burgundy, if you don't have it already in a, a bottle, a lot of my colors I mix, as you know. And so for burgundy, I need a little bit of red. And what I could do, take a touch of this red. So I'm going to do a little experimentation here. Let's see what happens when I take this red into this brown. This could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, but let's see what happens. So we almost get a hint of purple in there. It's kind of a fun color. So this is kind of, actually this would work nicely as kind of a burgundy. Could go darker, but I think I like that. Could also go with like a red brick or something like that, which now I'm tempted to do that. I'm going to paint this on there. We'll see how it looks. Can always change my mind later if I don't like it. Because it's acrylic, and that's what you can do. So if you get it on there and you're like, yeah, I don't like it, then just change it. Paint over it again, start with a different color. So I'm going to paint this one this burgundy color. I've got like a little balcony up here. It's like a little open air cafe. You know, it's going to be tricky to get in between. So, like, I'm going to have a railing here, but for right now, rather than painting, trying to get in between the rails, I'm just going to paint right across. And then I'll paint those little rails on later. That'll be much easier than trying to paint around it. And for my last building, I think I'm going to do another, let's see, I'll do a dark brown just to give it some contrast. Whoops, trying to dry this up and can't really do that on my palette. Okay, so I'm just going to go straight up with that raw umber brown and just come in here. This is just going to be a real dark building over here. It's off in the corner. I get some nice contrast between that and my little bakery. So I'll just do this like so. Maybe I'll take some of this dark brown, do a little bit of the roof up here. So I learned this, I took a Michigan architecture class like eons ago. And I learned that a lot of our architecture here in Michigan, especially the small towns and like in America, there's they're very inconsistent in terms of the shape. Whereas if you go over to Europe, a lot of the shops and apartment buildings and things, like everything kind of looks the same. So, um, yeah, in the US, a lot of our small towns are just kind of a mismatch of different buildings and things like that, which, you know, in a sense that gives it some charm too. The color I'm using right now is just a burnt sienna. So it's kind of a reddish brown, so I wanted a little bit warmer tones on this roof. I might do maybe some Spanish tiles. Maybe I want this to be like, I don't know, maybe like a little Italian bakery or something like that. So I'm going to rinse this out, and then I'm going to do some more fun colors on some of these other buildings. And you could totally do something completely different than this, depending on where your little imaginary town is in the world. I mean, if you're down in like Latin America or something like that, or if that's what you're thinking of, like, they do lots of really fun colors on all their towns and things like that. So just something to think about. I'm getting some turquoise, and I'm going to add some fun color on my little brown building here. I took a building like this earlier with a clay piece for a clay class I taught, and I loved how it turned out. It was like the brown with the teal roof, and like I had like teal awnings and things like that. It just turned out really cute. So just brightening it up. You can do all sorts of fun things like this. And this little painting is actually going to be one of my pocket paintings. Sorry about that. I have somebody coming out to pick up some ducks today. We have 5 ducks, and I have somebody who's going to rehome them. So she has a whole flock of ducks, and she's willing to take on more ducks. And part of the reason we're doing that is because where I live, we have really salty water. And we have learned over the last year that ducks consume so much water, which I guess, honestly, we really should have, known that ahead of time. But I mean, we researched it, but we didn't realize how much water they actually do consume. Like, it's a crazy amount of water. So, if you ever think you're going to get ducks, do your research. I don't know, maybe if we would have done like 2 ducks or something like that, that might have worked out a little bit better. But with all of the ducks, all the ones that we have, they just drink too much water, and we just can't keep up with it because we have to fill up containers. My husband fills them up at my in-laws' house. So, he's having to go like 3, sometimes 4 times a week just to fill up our water containers with fresh water because we can't give the ducks any of our salty water. We actually bring water in for ourselves. So if you have really great drinking water, that is a blessing. Sometimes you really don't realize what a blessing that is until you actually don't have that luxury. So we can wash and stuff like that, do my laundry and things like that with the water that we do have from our well, but we pay for water to be dropped off. We get big 5-gallon jugs dropped off once a month, and we have a water dispenser, so we use that for drinking and cooking and things like that. I don't know if I like this yellow or not, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm trying to brighten up some of my buildings here. Sometimes it's good to have a plan, and sometimes I just like to wing it and see what happens. So we're going to see how this goes. All right, and you can't really tell here, but these this is a little street cafe over here, so these are little umbrellas and things. I filled in the street itself, but I'm going to come back and these will all be little details. This is a little street vendor. It's going to be a little flower vendor. So I'm just kind of getting all these roofs done and all of that done first before I move on to the next things. Okay, I'm thinking maybe this roof over here, I could do like a gray, like a tin roof maybe, or maybe a copper. That almost looks like a copper roof. Maybe a tin roof. I'm gonna try something here. What if I tried doing a little bit of blue of this turquoise and the brown. That kind of gives it, kind of makes it look like a copper patina. I don't know if you can see that. But all right, so I just put a little bit of the burnt sienna with that turquoise, and I'm just gonna add some color up here. So this is maybe like a little bit of a copper roof, and then it's got a touch of a patina on there. And if you don't know what a patina is, that's when the copper is exposed to air. Like it's really, really shiny, but then when you expose it to the air, it starts to turn kind of green. That's like when you see an old penny, when they look kind of greenish. So there's your fancy word for today, patina. And that's part of the reason like a lot of sculptors and things would do copper sculptures precisely because they wanted that patina. Like that's part of the look. So you're learning all these cool art things today. Lucky you. Okay, what else here? I think I'm gonna darken this in here, my little cart. And it's pretty small, so I'm gonna pull out, I'm just working on a 5x7, so this is actually a very small painting, so you may notice I'm using very small brushes, especially for all these little details. But this could certainly be something you did on a larger canvas. In fact, if I like the way it turns out, maybe I will do a larger one. Right now I'm just playing around with colors, and I may or may not like how the colors turn out, because it is kind of mismatched here. So let's see. Oh, this brush is getting a bit splayed out, but it's working. I'm going to do a little bit of this brown and the other brown just to get some variation, get some streaks. It's like a little rain shade here on this cart. And then we'll do this part here. Maybe there's a little section that comes down there, one that comes here. So if you're joining me, it's Rose from the Painted Toad, and I am painting a quaint little downtown. Maybe you have one like this where you live. Some of the downtowns around where I live are actually kind of getting revitalized, which is really nice. We have a few nearby where when I was in high school, which is actually quite a long time ago now that I think about it, but when I was in high school, there really was not much of anything, like a lot of vacant buildings, you know, like the insurance agency, like not cute shops and things like that. So now this little town is like completely revitalized, and it has all these great restaurants. It has a really fun sweet shop, little knickknack stores, and it's hopping. Like people are there all summer long, even in the winter. Like they have a great little two theaters. They have an inn. So it's really coming back to life, and it's so cool to see. Years ago, and it's so good for the local area, for the local businesses and things like that. Brings people in. All right. I'm thinking that looks kind of cute. While I have this brown going, I'm going to take one of my liner brushes, if I can find it, which is just a really skinny detail brush. And I'm going to use some of this brown and kind of create those Spanish tiles here. So this fun stuff, like I'm going to move around the painting here. So this part is dry, so I'm coming back to it. Just creating some vertical lines here. And this is just, it's good to create textures and things like that. It makes it visually interesting. Oops, wrong color. Oh dear, I don't know if you can hear that. I have a child in distress upstairs. I'm wondering if she's upset about the fact that we're getting rid of the ducks, which she never really visits the ducks anyways, so I don't know. So these are my little Spanish tiles. Can you see that okay? Let me try and zoom in just a tad here. I'll push it over so you can kind of see a little bit of the detail work. So I'm just taking a liner brush with some brown and I'm doing some curved lines like this. And technically, like when you do like one of these little scenes like this, you don't actually have to like do every single little tile here. You can kind of, sorry about the went out of focus there, but if you do a few, it kind of actually will look, you know, like your eye will kind of finish the look. So if that makes sense. And then I think we're going to do a big wooden door here. So I'm going to go back to my flat brush and I'll load up a couple colors on it. Just dry it off because I don't want a big blob. So I'm doing some of the burnt sienna and the raw umber, 2 browns. And I'm going to come in here and just kind of paint down like this. So I don't know if you can see, I get a little bit of a stripey effect, almost like it's a big heavy wooden door. So that looks kind of cool. And then how about I also do, I'm just going to take the edge of this brush and just kind of dab it around. Well, technically I probably should have done the inside of the window first, but that's all right. So I'm just going to dab this and make it look like there's little, like a little brick inset around the building. Or not around the building, what am I saying? Around the window. Maybe I should just be quiet and not say anything since I'm making things up. Trying to do this so that it doesn't focus on my hand, because sometimes it wants to focus on my hand, and as lovely as my hand is, that is not why I'm doing this. You want to see the painting, not my hand. Alright, so that looks kind of cute. I like that. I'm just going to take and just do a little bit of an edge along here. So that's a little bit dark, but let me just take some white. I need to get some more white here, and I will lighten that right up, and while it's wet, I'm going to blend it. So I had like this lemony yellow there. I'm going to mix up some more lemony yellow. So I'm just taking white with yellow. It's getting a little dingy just because I had my brown in that, but that's fine. And let me see if I can just kind of blend this a little bit more so that it's more gradual. Oh, there we go. I think that looks Looks like we got a bit of an overhang, so that's the look I'm going for. All right, so there's my little bakery. I may just do a couple of these buildings and then we'll see how much time I have left before I have to make dinner. And tonight I have some classes that I'm teaching kids, so we'll see if I can finish up a couple things on this, and then I will post a link for the video if you don't get to see all of it. Ooh, get some water in this blue. I still have a little bit of blue left over that wasn't totally dry, but it's kind of thick. Could get fresh, but I'm being lazy. So this is why I probably should have done the blue first and then the little bricks around, but that's all right. I'm just going to fill it in. Some of that brown is getting pulled in, but actually, I think that looks good. Kind of looks natural. Gives it kind of a natural, like maybe there's something reflecting on the window, or maybe it's, you can see inside and there's some dark stuff inside. So let's move on to another building. I've got one of these over here. So this time I'm going to paint my windows first, and then I'll do the outlines. So for the windows, I'm just using a light blue. If you don't have light blue, just mix a dark blue with some white. But I have this lovely shade of light blue that I'm going to use that I just used on the other little windows. And I'm coming here. Ugh. I may just have to break down and squeeze more paint out of the bottle. There we go. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm just doing some blue. And then if you want it to maybe look a little bit like glass, you can dip the tip of your flat brush in some white, and while it's still wet, just kind of go sideways like this, almost like it's a little bit reflective. So I'm just dipping it in the white. Then I'll do the door. So we could have, might be nice to have like a nice shop door. So let's do, I'm going to do the door. Instead of a big heavy door, we're going to have, it's going to be a glass door. So you can see in the store through the door. So let's just bring some more of this blue here. And take a bit of the white. Dab sideways here. I'm not too worried about this going over that edge because we'll tidy it up later. So there's our little shop door. Okay, I'm going to let this dry while I move on to the next building. So my next building, do some more. I think I'll just keep doing my windows here and get those filled in. And then I'll worry about the other little awnings and things like that. I do love how this little bakery is looking. It looks so super cute. If you're joining me, it's Rose from the Painted Toad, and we are doing a little downtown shop with a street cafe. You can't see the cafe right now because I have it kind of focused in on these little shop buildings. But I'm gonna I will show it to you in a moment. All right. Then a touch of the white. Okay, now to fill in, this little flat brush is really, I think I need to get a new one, unfortunately. So I'm going to go with, I think I'll just go with my liner brush to do some of the smaller details around the doors and windows. Up here, let me get some black, and I want it to seem like, you know, those are apartments up there, so maybe they're going to have the shutters down because, you know, they're downstairs, they have the shop open, so we'll have some shutters down here for privacy. Or maybe somebody's up there. Maybe somebody works midnights and they're up sleeping in this little apartment while business goes on downstairs. Or, yeah. As you paint, it's kind of fun to come up with little stories. You know, like think about who's living in these little upper apartments, or what kind of shops are they, and who are the people who visit the shops, and you can just kind of use your imagination for those things. That's what I do. I feel like over here as well, I'm going to do a couple of, let's see, we're going to make this one a little different. So this one, maybe there's some curtains that they have in this particular apartment. So you can't see, the lights aren't on right now, so it's going to look a little bit dark inside. And then we'll do some curtains on this bottom one as well. Just like that. I'm going to shift it back along. We can see all of our little buildings here. And this is a little cafe up here. So the there's like a balcony up here where there's seating. And then there's also little tables and things coming out onto the street. So this is like a walking boulevard, like there would be no traffic. This is just for walking traffic. And I like the idea that maybe down here there's these little archways. So it's kind of an open air cafe, like you would go in And so there's archways. So that is what I'm planning in my imagination. It's almost like looks like the old firehouse in the town I grew up in. Like maybe somebody converted the firehouse to like a real cool, eclectic cafe restaurant thing. I think that would be kind of cool. I'm just gonna got a little archways here. So I'm just making some fun little details on here. Okay. Now then, let's see if we did, let me think here what I want to do with this. Well, I think I'm gonna let that dry. I'm gonna move back to some of my other buildings over here. Let's do an awning on these. You know, while I do have my black liner brush, I could have a little bit of fun with the roof up here and just do some. So can I zoom in anymore? I guess I can't. Okay, sorry. I can't zoom in anymore. So I'm just going to go up here and take my liner brush, and I'm not worried about this being perfect. It's going to take some black lines across there. This is just details. This isn't, you know, just kind of adding in some fun textures and details. So if I do some roof tiles like this, I'm going to do every other line here. But like I mentioned before, you don't have to do every single tile to get it to look like the roof is tiled. So this is kind of a cool trick. You just do a few here and there, and it gives you that look that, oh, it's tiled. So there we go. So nice little tiled roof. I feel like that needs a little something right there. Now, as far as the texture on here, this was kind of a thin paint. So I'm gonna pull that out again. That was a khaki color. So let me mix this up a little bit. And I'm gonna pull some of the brown in with the khaki just to get, just so it's not so streaky. You know, can you see all the paint strokes? It looks kind of meh, doesn't look all that great. So I'm gonna pull in, I'll try this little flat brush again, even though it's getting worn down. So I'm going to use this little bit of khaki here and then mix it with some brown. Just so I can get, whoops, let me show you what I'm doing. Okay, there we go. Just to get a little bit of variation in the color. So I'm going to kind of come here, maybe under the roof, get a little bit darker. I don't want it to look too much like my other building over there. So I'm going to pull this down, and then I'm going to go back in with more just the plain khaki and just kind of let those two blend together. I'm just kind of stroking those two together, so that looks a little better. Ooh, why is that so dark? Let's try that again. I think probably because my brush is a bit dirty. So this particular khaki was a craft paint, and sometimes with the craft paints, it's thin. So you need to either thicken it up with something, or you just need 2 coats. So I'm just opting to do 2 coats here. And I'm going to add a touch more of that brown color that I made. So you can kind of see how this is coming down here. Let's just kind of bring a little bit of a shadow down there. Can you see how that's a little darker? Maybe a little shadow next to this building here. Like that. And then where else will we have shadow? We probably have a little shadow under the awning here, so this might be darker around the door. Might be a little darker here next to this building. This one kind of looks like it's squeezed in there, so. So I'm going to bring this one a little bit more of the dark brown there. Just kind of added some color on this one. And then definitely under this awning it'd be much darker because that's shaded. I'm just going to kind of pull that down, even out this edge. Here we go. I'm going to put a little shadow under here. Oop, that's a little bit darker than I wanted. You know what? Let me do this. I'm going to make a window box right here while my brush is still dark. And then I will lighten that with some more beige. Sometimes that happens. Like, whoops, didn't mean it to be that dark, but I'm just going to get some of the dark off of there, bring in some light color, and lighten this up. There we go. Let's kind of mix all that in there. See? All fixed. Okay. I'm going to do some brown around the door and maybe around the windows, and then I'll do those awnings. And then that's probably all I have time for right now, so I may come back later and finish this, or I will, if I do make this into a video, which I have several little short clips. I will put them all together in one video, and then you can check it out on my YouTube page. So, let's bring this line up here. So you can really see how this is coming together. Just add in these fun little details like this. It's really starting to look like a little building. Let me add a couple little lines here, just to give it a little dimension. Now, if you're one that's like, well, I don't know if I can do all that fine detail work, they have these really great paint pens that would work, you know, for doing some of these smaller details. So if working with a liner brush like this intimidates you, you can always do something like that. I'm going to create, look at this, see? There, I just created a different shape to my door. I think that looks kind of cool. Now I went in with my liner brush just to add some different lines here on this building. I'm turning it into a red brick building. Like I said before, it kind of looks like an old firehouse. Wouldn't that be a cool thing to change an old firehouse into a cafe? I think that would have like just such a cool ambiance, or like a restaurant, or maybe a brewery. Maybe I need to do that. I think that would just have a really neat atmosphere. There is a place around us. It's called the Firehouse, but it's a bar restaurant, so it doesn't really look like a firehouse, but be kind of a eclectic location for a restaurant. So once again, with these bricks and things, I'm just filling in some lines, and you don't really have to do every single brick to get it to look like brick. So if you do a few here or there, you'll still get that effect. Right across here is my little upstairs patio for upstairs dining. So I'm going to paint this in here, make a floor. for my patio table so it's not just floating next to the building. I'm going to change the color of that upstairs patio just so that later on I'm going to add uh, a railing around it. So I want a little bit of contrast between the railing and the flooring up there. So sorry, my head's in the way there. But you can still see the painting. That's the important thing. Now that I've got a lot of the main details in, like the main background things, I'm going back in with my liner brush and adding textures, outlining windows and doors, just taking a little bit of time to make this look unique. And you can do all sorts of things to make this, fun and, semi-realistic. You can go in and add little details. I don't think I'm actually going to put people in this. I have an idea for that, so when we get to that part, I will tell you what I'm going to do instead. But yeah, it's just adding details. I'm going to mix up a color for the awnings on that tall beige building. So I have some phthalocyanine green. It's kind of a slightly bluish green. I'm going to take a little white, mix that up, and it almost makes a bit of a minty or I don't know, a bit of a turquoisey green here. I think that'll look kind of cool on my beige building. So that's next. Now I'm going to take my brush and just put a touch of white on it. It still has the green on there, so it's still dirty. I haven't washed it, but I'm going to take a little white and fill in a couple areas just to add some highlights on these. I mean, this is all finer detail. I don't want it to look so flat. And so adding a little bit of highlight just like this keeps it from looking so plain and flat. Makes it look a bit more, well, a little bit more realistic, even though this isn't, perfect realism here. It gives it more character. While I let these details dry, I'm going to take my flat brush with some white and I'm going to paint over all of these little cafe tables and umbrellas. And some of them, got a little bit covered up with the background, so I can fix the shape of them just using the white paint. Like this one over here. I'm just going to use my flat brush and fix the shape. We can paint right over those areas where the background kind of covered up. Turn your brush if you need to. It's always okay to move and turn your brush so it works how you need it to work. Of course, I don't want to forget my little upstairs patio seating. So let me do this one up here, up on the patio. Now I'm going to mix some colors to do the cobblestone road bed. And this is completely optional. You could keep that plain road bed and you could, maybe add a couple highlights and shadows. I really wanted to go for the old school cobblestone look. So I'm using a little burnt sienna, a little bit of white here. So I'm going to get kind of this orangey orangey brown color. Burnt sienna is more of an orangey brown. And then I'm going to use my round brush, and I'm going to do a variety of different colors for the stones to give it that cobblestone look. I'm not really going to follow a certain pattern. I'm just going to take my brush and make little stone-like shapes. They don't have to be perfect. Some can be a little bigger, smaller. I really could, take a lot of time to make these. You could do like smaller ones that are farther away if you gave it a lot of thought, and then bigger ones closer to the foreground or the bottom of your canvas. But I'm just gonna fill in with these and just randomly place them around. So I'm not really following a brick pattern here. I'm just randomly placing these dots all over. And in order to save time, I'm going to speed this up a little bit so you can just kind of see how this goes. And if you need to pause the video to do each part, go ahead and do that, but I'm going to speed this up. Now I'm switching colors to a darker brown, and I'm going to do the very same thing. I'm going to make little dots. They don't all have to be perfect. Just going to fill in around wherever I don't have the reddish orange bricks. Once again, I'm going to speed this up. Next color, I did a lighter beige. I took my raw umber, mixed a little bit of white in it. So the bottom flat area is also raw umber, and I went a touch lighter than that. And keep going. Like I said, if you don't want to do all this tedious work, I mean, it does look cool at the end, but you could just go with a single flat color and just kind of do some texture instead of all these little bricks. And one last color. I created kind of a light brown. I mixed a bit of the orangey stuff I had with some of the dark brown. I got another shade of brown here, and I'm just going to fill in any gaps that are left to get my final cobblestone look. adding another little bit of yellow on here because some of that was see-through. Yellow is kind of a transparent color. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that um, burnt sienna brown and just create some lines and textures to make this a little bit more interesting. It's little details like this, like I keep saying that, make it stand out. It doesn't look so flat. It looks a little bit more realistic. So if you want to take the time to do these sorts of things, it's really going to give your buildings character. Now, for building code safety, we need to put in that railing on the upper balcony area, the seating area up there. We have to have it safe for any diners. So I'm just doing some vertical lines here. I'm using black paint, doing a black rail. Super simple, easy to cover up the color that's already there, so I won't have to do extra layers. I'm going to take some cream and paint the window shades in this brown building. It's kind of an off-white, just to give them color. Now for the fun part, I'm going to paint all my little umbrellas. You could do these any color you want. I decided to do a red and white umbrella. Just kind of a classic. I don't know. I feel like this is a little Italian type eatery. Like, I feel like they would have a brick oven pizza that they like that's their specialty. So I'm going with the red and white classic red and white stripes here for my patio umbrellas. It's important to note that when you're painting stripes, if you do stripes, um, you want to keep them curved. So they're going to curve this way on this side of the umbrella. And then as you work your way around to the other side of the umbrella, they're going to start changing and curving the other way. So you don't want to just do vertical stripes. It won't look as real. Think of a pumpkin, the way a pumpkin's um, lines are on a pumpkin. So this one will also be curved. And then now that I'm to the middle of the umbrella, the middle white line is kind of going to have curves on both sides. And now with the red, let me finish one more thing here. Hold on. Okay, so with the red, now I'm going to curve this line going the other way. So that middle white section has like curves going the opposite direction. And then now all the red lines are going to start curving in the other direction. If you don't want to bother with all that, you can just paint your umbrellas a solid color, then you don't have to worry about it. But it does look kind of cool when you could do that. I am going to speed this up just to finish these umbrellas. And now I'm adding some shrubs, or, well, I guess they're little plants. They're not shrubs. Whoops, my brush was a little wet here, so I'm just soaking up some water. If ever that happens, just take a little paper towel, soak up the water. But I'm taking my brush, adding some green, so there's some plants in these little planters. And adding bits of green here and there brings a little bit of life into this scene. since there's no people, we have the plants. And I feel like the people are inside the buildings right now. These are the shop owners. They're getting ready to open up. I'm taking a little bit of, this is kind of a dusty yellow I have. It's called Naples yellow. So I add a little bit of that into the greens. So adding in lots of greens. I'm going to add some over here in this little flower cart. I feel like this little shop needs maybe some topiaries right next to either side of the door. So I'm going to paint 2 planters. So one here on this side of the door, and then I'll paint one on the other side of the door, and then we'll put some green topiaries in there. There we go. Looking at this, I almost feel like I should have put a fountain or something in the middle of the square like it's the town square, but that will have to be another painting. I'm going to put another planter over here while I have some brown on the brush. So this building maybe has like a row of planters or some sort of vegetation in the front. And now I'm using a little green. Just do some little topiaries here. 1, 2, 3 dots. And 1, 2, 3 dots on that side. I'm going to give some loving details to this building that's cut off. It's over here all by itself. Using that same Naples yellow, kind of a light yellow, to frame up the windows. And actually, I would recommend, I didn't do this, but I would recommend paint the curtains inside first and then do your outline, but I didn't do that, so I'm going to actually, and you can see here, I'm doing the outlines first and then I go back in and paint the curtains, but I would recommend doing it the other way around. Using my liner brush now, I'm going to take some white and add details to my table. So some table legs. We need a post for the umbrella. You can paint in some little chairs if you want. All these small details can just be shapes. So for a chair here, I'm going to do this oval for the seat of the chair. And then I'll kind of do an open oval for the back, like so, and then a couple little legs underneath. So you know it's a chair. You don't have to go hog wild trying to make it look super real. Now I'm going to use a bit of gray. I'm making some gray with black and white. And I'm going to go in and add just a bit of shadowing on the tables and things just to give them some dimension so we can see the difference between the tabletop and the post. So you use a little gray there. I'm going to take my brush here and swirl a little gray in a curve around the edge of the table here. It's just, once again, it's adding those little details so it doesn't look super flat. It gives it some dimension, variations in the different highlights and shadows. Now this looks super cute like it is, but I am a detail person, so I'm going to go back with my liner brush and with some black, I'm going to add some textures on some of the buildings that I haven't done that yet. I might do a little bit of outlining. Um, so you can use your own discretion here. You don't really want to do big heavy outlines on everything. You can see the lines here. They're kind of broken up. They're not perfect. It's just a light marking to give it a little bit of dimension, a little bit of interest and variation. So, details, details. If you are brave, you can maybe add some little signs. This is going to be my bakery. Now you can get real cute and kind of make up a cute name for some of your shops and things if you really wanted to, but I really couldn't think of anything off the top of my head, and I just felt like this is just a bakery. Maybe it has a name, but on the outside it just says bakery. So on my little flower stand here, I need to add, just adding some lines just to make it stand out a bit from the background because it gets a little bit lost in the cobblestone. And then I'm going to do a big wheel. So I got a big wooden wheel. Let's do these spokes into the center. And now for some fun colors. So I'm going to put some flowers into that little flower wagon. I got yellow. I'm going to use bright colors to make them stand out. So I'm going to do some yellow, some red, probably some pink. I might add some flowers to some of the other places where I have things growing, like back here in this little planter. I got some red flowers. And nothing fancy here, it's just little dots of color. The flowers are too far away, you're not going to see any details. We just want the color. Notice I did add little chimneys on a couple of the buildings. I'm using a little white here, but I'm going to mention here, before you do this, skip ahead because I decided to make this kind of an early morning, like before the town opens up, before the market opens, or the cafe. So I would do those little smokestacks later, and then check out what I do with the background. I created kind of a lemon yellow using white and yellow, and I'm going to use my flat brush. I'm just drying it off here. And I want to make this look more like an early morning sky. It kind of looks like midday. But if it was midday, I feel like this whole place would be packed with people, and I don't really feel like painting in the people. Now, you totally could do that. You could paint in people. So I'm just taking my flat brush, using the edge of it, and just painting in some light yellow streaks. So we have some early morning sun creeping up behind these buildings. You know, maybe the birds are just waking up. We know that the baker's in the bakery getting things ready. Shopkeepers are getting ready to do business for the day. Next, I'm taking some magenta and mixing it with that yellow. So I'm going to get kind of a peachy, pinky orange color. And I'm going to fill in a little bit more of that in my background so it looks like sunrise, because right now it looks a little bit like smog. We don't want smog in our quaint little village. So mix up a shade of an orangey pink. And honestly, if I would have thought of this at the beginning, I would have done this at the very, very beginning. But for now, I'm just painting around behind the buildings here. Just be careful you don't pull it over the top of any of the details you took time to make. And this is the final product. So this actually, it took quite a long time. So this is pretty long for a little 5x7. But I hope you enjoyed the painting, and make sure you check out my other videos, like and subscribe, and be creative, be artistic, and get connected at the Painted Toad.